What is going on, YouTube? This is Acid Root. So I'm going to review a 2007 album by King Gordy. Basically, this album is called Cobain's Diary, and I think it came out in the summer of 2007. There's not a ton of information. Wikipedia at least says it came out in August of 2007, but it's not like wholesomely confirmed, so I just wondered the concept about it. I mean, King Gordy's pretty low-key, so I just question, but I know it came out in 2007, and it might have been August of 2007. That's kind of the concept about it, but I look after this project. This one is kind of inspired by Nirvana and Kurt Cobain and that type of stuff. And the concept about this is a pretty super stellar project. This is a pretty super stellar project. This is definitely probably one of King Gordy's best that I've seen thus far. And this is definitely one of King Gordy's best that I've seen thus far. And I've liked quite a bit of his music. So I'd have to say this is really up there with it. This is an outstanding album from like the late 2000s. It's definitely some excellent horrorcore. It is kind of hardcore rap, but I like the concept of getting this just because there's a lot of shrill stuff on here. And there's even some songs in here that remind me of the stuff that Eminem kind of does. There's a song with Bizarre on here that definitely has some Eminem remnants, and kind of another song on here called The Gift and the Curse that really feels like something that Eminem would do. Is just kind of the concept about it. So I definitely like some of these contexts. It's really just like a horrifying album. This is like, despite the fact of it being about Cobain's diary, I mean, it definitely, like, it takes like the kind of woozy, kind of emphatically kind of melancholy feels of like Nirvana and stuff, and then just combines it with like some shrill horrorcore. I definitely like the intro and the outro. Those are like some Nirvana tunes. Definitely need to mess with those. I need to figure out what Nirvana songs those are, because those are some awesome ones that he picked. But then I'd have to say on top of that, this is a really kind of shrill and just mortifying kind of horrorcore album. This is just like King Gordy being the king of horrorcore really fits that title, because this is just some shrill stuff, and this is masterful, and like the stroke of how it did it, just with the concept of getting some of these real, yeah, just basically mortifying and overall horrific type tunes that just work, and horrific in a good way, of course, but just saying overall horrible kind of type stuff that goes along. That's just excellent to kind of hear, and it's just very melodic and just awesome. Just overall, it just really kicks ass. So I'd have to say I'm not really sure if there's a single on this album, but I'll go ahead and talk about the songs I recommend on here. So to really talk about these, just because the information on this album is so minimal, it's just kind of the concept that I look after. I like the concept of being able to flesh out this particular album and get some conveyance about this project, because it does have some good stuff on here, and it's definitely worth looking into. I mean, this CD seems like it's hard enough to find. It's not on Amazon from what I saw, but I would have to say it's some excellent stuff on here, and I would definitely pursue looking into this album. Don't be kind of, just because he's so low key and this album doesn't have a single, don't think that it's bunk or something like that, because it's definitely, I mean, I think there might be like a mild learning curve if you're just used to like 2010s or 2020s trap, or just like stuff from like the 2000s that's just kind of more Eminem, 50 Cent, Dr. Dre type stuff. I would definitely say I do think that King Gordy's kind of like a distant cousin of Eminem. He has a lot of similarities. They grew up in the same parts, and they're both affiliated with Bizarre. So I just look after the concept as far as trying to say this is some good stuff on here. This kind of, it's a little bit underground, but this is probably a more kind of polished King Gordy compared to some of the stuff that he's done. I do feel like this is, at least it's underground, but it's not like super underground to the point where you just are not going to have any sort. I mean, the beats on here are pretty excellent. So this is kind of the concept. It's just, I would say there's a learning curve to like the production on here, but it's not super large. So that's kind of the thing. But basically, out of the 12 songs in this album, I recommend every single song minus the one song, which is Worship Me, Murder Me, which that one just kind of had like a rock rap beat that just didn't fit the rest of the album. That was like the only true tune on here that just was not like truly wholesomely invigorating as far as that kind of went. But I would have to say the rest of the album is just top notch. This album's obviously going to get a 10 out of 10. I just would have to say, as far as that kind of goes. But to talk about the intro and the outro, I'm going to get those out of the way real quick, because those are some excellent ones. So the intro is a nice evening malaise and kind of slick soul and makeshift tune, I would have to say, and the song has charisma. These are just, you're going to hear some Nirvana tunes in the background, and it's really believable that this cat that's just super depressed on these songs, the intro and the outro, just really has an emphasis about it. So it's just dope to kind of get that. King Gordy is a pretty good actor as far as he does with this sort of stuff, so it's an excellent kind of stuff to kind of get in here. I definitely want to know those Nirvana songs. And then the outro is another nice one. This is kind of a grim, dope interlude with like sleek, somber. This outro is a grim, dope interlude with like a sleek, somber kind of beat. And I would definitely say the atmosphere is emphatic and compelling. So these are definitely two excellent ones. Definitely a pretty, adds to like it's like the icing on the cake, the rest of the album that just kicks ass. So it's definitely kind of the thing there. But talk about some of this album, like a particular song Talk about this album. A particular song that reminds me of Eminem is definitely The Gift and the Curse. This song definitely reminds me of Eminem's song Mockingbird. Just that Gift and the Curse definitely reminds me of Eminem. This is a song that reminds me of Eminem's Mockingbird. Just kind of has that brooding kind of Eminem type piano type beat as far as that kind of goes. It's very similar to the brooding Eminem type tracks that you probably heard on like Encore and Eminem Show and some of those type ones. This would be a nice replacement for Eminem if you've worn out all of his records. I mean, there's not a super ton of songs that are reminiscent of Eminem, but I'd say at least a couple on here kind of are. It's that same kind of brooding type energy. King Gordy's pretty good at these ruminating type tunes, so this is a nice gloomy ruminating gem. Definitely would have to say. So that's a nice one. And another one that's kind of like that is Cobainiac. This one's kind of a moody, sulking gem with like a nice melancholy piano beat. I would have to say it's just a nice dirge-like tune, and its eeriness has some charm on there. So this one has Bizarre on there. This is performed by the Last American Rock Stars, which is just Bizarre and King Gordy. But this is definitely one that just kind of has like a real kind of moody kind of affair. Yeah, Cobainiac really feels like a Dracula-like tune. Just really those kind of chilling kind of piano type beats as far as that kind of goes. Definite nice one. Another real highlight on here, there are some manic tunes on here. I definitely like some of these ones. I really feel like one in particular is Nightmares Part 2. Nightmares Part 1 is on King Gordy's. Nightmares Part 1 is on King Gordy's The Entity from 2003, and I reviewed that back in early 2022, so I would look into that review also. But yeah, this is a dark, horrific kind of riot starter. I would say it's similar to When Darkness Falls off of the Entity album that I just talked about, and it's very shrill and venomous. So this is definitely one that this is very manic. This feels like a real kind of riotous party starter as far as that kind of goes. Definitely feels like a riotous party starter to kick things off as far as that kind of goes. This really has some shrill kind of bone chilling kind of energy. There's a couple good beats on here like Beautiful Day. Beautiful Day is a pretty nice one. Definitely like this one. This one has some personality. This is a swirling, dark, ruminating cut. I would have to say it's kind of offhanded for the song title that it has, but it's just a brooding kind of manic track. So I definitely like this one. This one's not quite as full-blown horrorcore, but it's kind of the concept of just kind of being one that's just a little bit more ruminating, just it feels kind of makeshift about it, but it's just kind of the concept that it's still in kind of a haunting kind of pitch as far as that kind of goes. So it's just kind of one that just feels like a swirling kind of where the skies would be red, something like that. Just some kind of haunting type feel and aesthetic as far as that kind of goes. Definitely like that one. And then Damien's another nice one that kind of has that feel. And Damien's another nice one that kind of has that feel. Damien is kind of a twinkling, haunting gem, definitely. It feels like a dark, churchy kind of bop, I would have to say. And it just has a riveting jive for some bounce, I would definitely say. So that's definitely a good concept of that. Yeah, Damien is definitely a favorite song on here for me. I definitely like this kind of dark, churchy kind of beat. It just really feels blue blood and kind of elegant the way it kind of comes off. So that's a nice one to kind of have. It just really has a good degree of elegance on here. And then El Diablo. El Diablo is kind of another haunting one, just like Nightmares Part 2. It's kind of got a similar pitch to that one. It's just a shrill, kind of ghoulish jolt of a song, I would have to say. It's a real demonic and kind of riveting one, and it's just a nice riotous bop. This is definitely a good shrill one for that sort of pace as far as that kind of goes. Kind of one that had a nice pitch on here is Chasing People Through the Woods, which this one's kind of about Jason Voorhees and that type of stuff. So this is a pacey, kind of looming, foresty kind of horrorcore smash, I would definitely have to say. And it has lots of grim, chilling energy, I would have to say. So this is a nice one. This is another one that reminds me of Eminem a little bit. Reminds me of the sort of stuff that he would do on like Chasing People Through the Woods is another one that reminds me of Eminem a little bit. This reminds me of something that Eminem would have done on like the Marshall Mathers LP with like Kim or Kill You or something like that. One of those type ones. Definitely kind of has that same sort of pitch. So it's just a good bop for how that kind of goes. It's really kind of a looming kind of one that just kind of feels paced and just kind of has like a real thump about it. This really has some nice good energy about it. I definitely like Love. Love is definitely a nice one on here. This is a melancholy kind of piano ballad, I would have to say. It's got chilling energy and aesthetic, definitely, and it's a nice jolt of gloom and appeal. So this is one. I really like the hook on this particular song. This is just a very emphatic one and a great one to kind of have just a great little ballad on here. It's interesting to be able to see that King Gordy can pull off ballads as far as that kind of goes. It's not really so much like a bop or kind of like a shrill party starter, but this is not so much like a bop or like a shrill party starter as far as that kind of goes. But this one just kind of has like a real kind of lambent kind of melancholy but lambent kind of energy as far as that kind of goes. Just a nice ballad to kind of have. And Go and Get a Knife is a boppish, creeping, freakish tune. I would definitely say it's very melodic and has a ghoulish kind of offhanded charm about it. So this is another nice bop on here. This one kind of has like a little bit of pep. This is one that has a little bit of pep to its step. I would have to say it's kind of a little bit more lively one. I mean, there's definitely some shrill kind of ones like El Diablo and Nightmares Part 2, but this is one that almost feels like a haunting kind of club, something like that, some sort of monster mash type stuff that you would see as far as that kind of goes. Just a real kind of ghoulish, kind of goblin like affair, something of that assortment as far as that kind of goes. Definitely, I mean, it just kind of marinates in the horrorcore, and this is some good stuff to kind of get here as far as kind of having that emphasis of just some good hits. That's definitely a good concept to get some of these. I would say that wraps up the album here. So me liking 11 songs out of 12 on this album gets a 10 out of 10. The social score I'm going to give like a 9.25 out of 10. I would like to give this album a 10, but it just didn't have any singles. It does have some good affability about it, but there's not. I almost feel like this album could have used something that could have been like the breadwinner as far as like the one that's like the best song on this album. I definitely think there's some horrorcore on here. I definitely like the horrorcore on this album, but it is kind of hardcore and you have to look after it. You have to kind of go searching for it more so than just the affability of just supposing that there's going to be like tunes on here that are just going to kind of get regular rotation as far as that kind of goes. It's just kind of more of a seek, just kind of more of one that you go seeking for more so than actually that I would think would have regular kind of spins as far as just like the vernacular or something that you would know about just with like your social kind of buds and stuff. But it's definitely when you find it, it's definitely pretty awesome. And it just thing about horrorcore is it can kind of be isolated. I do think there's like some shrill kind of ones on here for your buds and that type of stuff, but it's just kind of it's within a reasonable question as to whether or not like it just would have the affability just right off the immediate bat as far as that's kind of concerned. So that's kind of the thing about it. But 9.25 social, it'd probably get a higher score if it had a single or something. But I just look after it. Good guests on here. The Fat Killers are on here. There's a couple of hook singers on here and that type of stuff. Excellent intro and outro. Good, just overall gloomy and kind of haunted kind of theme that just works extremely well. So yeah, this album gets a 10 out of 10, 9.25 social. In terms of the future, like King Gordy's been dropping like collaboration projects, I would have to say. And he kind of has like some EPs and stuff like that. He has tons of projects. So there's definitely some more of these I'm going to get to, but this is a pretty excellent album. This is definitely, I would have to say, thus far, one of King Gordy's best.